Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Ambition to Impact, where we're looking at how leaders can have a real impact in their careers, globally, in their lives, all of those things. And today we've got not one, but two guests with us, as you can see, who are going to share their views, their experiences, and their knowledge about how to really create impactful leaders and what's important in career development, especially from a global perspective as well in finance. Joining me today, I've got Luke Grant, Group Financial Controller of IMI PLC, and Edyta Zamojska, Finance Director, Global Precision Fluid. I'm going to jump straight in. Now, usually I've done this at the end, but I've just warned my guests that what I'm going to do is actually ask them about their leadership impact books and what's had a massive. So just very quickly, I've been giving your books, but I'm going to ask you, and starting Luke, what leadership book are you entering into the Leaders Library as one that's had an impact on you, and what impact did it have on you as a leader?
Yeah, thanks, Alexandra. So for me, the book that I think's had the most influence on me during my career is The Chimp Paradox. What that book's all about, it's about a little bit about mind management. So it explains to you the concept about different areas of your brain and how in different situations they will come out and get accentuated particularly when you're under pressure. So things like pricing negotiations or complex discussions, your chimp will come out, which will make you react in certain ways and make quick, snappy decisions. And it's a lot of it's about learning how to operate with your chimp, work with your chimps. People's chimps will operate in different ways or react very, very differently in different situations. So it's just about learning more about yourself and then how you take that through into your day-to-day life and all the different situations you come across. So it's certainly lots of learning from it over the years.
And have you used that yourself? You've suddenly thought, what is happening right now in my brain?
Yeah, definitely. You can think about it even in your personal life, where you get news of maybe like an event being cancelled. The natural thing is for your chimp to get angry, say, or something like that. And you just sort of think, I'm just going to be a bit more relaxed about this one. I've got my chimp under control.
Fantastic. I love that book and the principles, because it almost gives us a real clear visual of what's happening in the brain, and also gives us that feeling of, I control that. I have autonomy over that part, and it's not something I have to be, submissive to. So I really love that. Great submission. So that is going to be in the Leaders Library. I'm going to upload that one. Edyta, what have you got for us today in the Leaders Library?
I really like The Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's quite simple read, not really very professional only, but you can apply it in professional life too. And it basically says that you need to see desire, they will act and achieve what you set yourself for. And it makes nice that to achieve big things, we only need to change small things. And the change is a gradual, progressive, and change is a constant process. For us, we always tend to think that a big achievements require one big effort, and that's wrong. What gets us successful is really the constant process of identifying what we want to improve and just doing it in a very, very slices. And this book just gives a lot of very good examples how to just make the things which we don't like but need to get somewhere, make them more digestible for us to plan them in our day-to-day, and how to get the things that we really want very visible for us and very attractive for us. So we wake up wanting to do it.
And have you used that in terms of what has that helped you with?
It helped me to stay motivated. It helped me to stay focused and stay inspired by remembering that we need to keep ourselves inspired, keep ourselves some impulse from outside. And it helped also to get some small habits into more healthy lifestyle, also working lifestyle, by just having the yoga mat in front of me, etc. Very, very simple, but very powerful.
I love the idea of tiny things that build up massively. And of course, working in finance, you know that applies in so many different levels as well. Well, thank you so much for those books. I very much I use these two books or with clients as well, because they tagging on to small habits, like things you're already doing. And as you say, if you have the desire, you've got the motivation to move forward, to do something that potentially you don't want to do. And then it really tags onto the principles of neuroplasticity as well, because you're building up strong habits in the brain. And then, of course, you're eking yourself away from almost our poor habits, which are very easy to do because our chimp, actually, it's really good. The chimp drives poor habits sometimes, and we need to actually make the chimps in our brain a bit happier so that we can actually create those and forge those new neural pathways and better habits so that we can be higher performing and happier and more brilliant at what we do and have that impact. Well, this is where we go into it. We're going to dive into this because you two have a very unique individual perspective between you of what is important to develop a career, because you two have come to where you are in very different paths. So let's just have a look at that. Now, tell me a bit about where you are now and how you got there so we can see what the differences are between you two. And then we're going to dive into what's important. So Luke, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, I don't mind doing so at all. So maybe I'll start from the beginning if that's okay, in terms of the order of my careers. It actually started in the midst of the financial crisis. So sort of 2009. Kind of consider myself at the time fortunate to kind of have and get a job during that period. I started in the Big Four as an auditor. I think it was an interesting time to start. Obviously challenging from many business in many industries, but also it was a great foundation for learning. And I was there for 4 years, so sort of got my qualification stripes, if you like, and then actually for the last 9 years now, I've been at IMI. So I moved into sort of an external reporting role for a couple of years, and then I did an internal reporting role, so sort of did a lot of stuff at the group level, and then probably there was a sort of a big moment, if you like, in my career where I moved out to Germany. So I sort of moved out to Germany into one of our operational businesses. In fact, not too far away from the area that Edyta's working in from the director of. And yeah, so I was a non-German speaker in a German speaking role. So, had all the sort of challenges that come along with sort of learning a language whilst sort of doing a new job. That was a sort of a big step, and very different to what I've done prior to my career. I ended up spending 18 months out there, and learned a lot. Wish I could probably stayed a bit longer, but had an opportunity to come back to the UK for the last 3 years now. I've been the group controller for IMI, so sort of looking after sort of internal, external reporting, sort of growing the business. But even for the last 2 months as well, I've taken on investor relations as well. So sort of now dealing with the investor and analyst community, which is, definitely, very different again in terms of what I've been doing previously, but enjoying it a lot.
So what do you think your leadership style is now, and what's had the biggest impact on you on your journey then?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd actually say I worked for, I think, 2 different group controllers in the time that I've been here, and they both had very different styles. And so I think I learned a lot from both of them in terms of, looking at them as leaders, how they operated, how they managed teams, and then sort of trying to almost form a sort of best bits version, if you like, as I sort of take myself forward. I think that definitely in a role like the one I have today, I think the way you manage a team, motivate the team, I always just think I'm only as good as the team beneath me. So that part of the role is really, it energizes me, but it's also very, very important.
I love that you've put that phrase there, the team, you're only as good as your team. So obviously having these 2 different experiences from 2 different leaders has given you elements that you've taken away with you. What about you? What's your story? How have you risen up, and what's your leadership story?
So I have the opposite experience. Look, so I graduated very early from bachelor in international business management, and then I just joined and started working as a controller. And while doing that, I went on studying for certification in management accountancy. So I started very early. I started also in 2008, actually, a year earlier than Luke. And that just gave me a lot of bottom-up experience because I was continuing my studies and working. That gave me a lot of hands-on insight into like those people who start on the shop floor and then go to the management decision. I feel I have much more of that because I had spent much more time just doing while continuing to study. So I have spent quite a lot of time abroad. For me, it was all abroad because I was born and raised in Poland. I went to study in UK. So I spent 2 years working in the UK and 2 years working in APAC before coming to Germany, where I already worked 10 years. I joined a big company. It was actually a German company. I was not that aware how good that company was at the time of joining. They offered brilliant graduate opportunities and support for those who were hungry. And that's, for me, was and is very important, that we recognize people who are hungry and we give them the support, whatever support it is that they need at that time. With that company, I traveled around the world to do various tasks, and it got me into this position, even though I didn't have all the theory at the time. I started to be exposed to this as we go along. So what I've learned through it is that being abroad alone gives a lot of confidence and gives a self-reflection. And those are very powerful to just let us do those bigger things or tasks that are totally unfamiliar. And then they give you even more confidence and motivation and hungriness to continue growing and continue new challenges. I've been changing my jobs every year and a half, new assignments, new settings. I felt like I was working for 10 different companies, even though it was one big group, until recently where I joined IMI Precision Engineering. So for me, my career is more working through experience and exposing yourself, having the confidence to try things. And it's not to say that we don't fail sometimes because we are maybe too early, too young, too alone. The important part is that we have also mindset to ask, which I've seen failing in India, for example, where people just always say yes. You probably know that too. People don't ask for help. And this is where you see the cultural differences, where ability to ask for help when we feel it's needed gives us so much speed to go faster and to avoid the big mistakes. So a bit of a courage to also say, I don't know, I need help.
I'm really glad you've said that, because that is something that cut within a lot of cultures. And I know businesses who've had issues here where it is within the culture is impolite to ask for help. It's almost like the customer is always right. Don't worry, we'll figure it out later. And unfortunately, that means that mistakes get made and things get missed because there's not almost a psychological safety to come out. And as you said, the courage to come and speak out. So I'm wondering, what you said, you're there to give support to people who need it. What kind of support are you seeing now in the world? As things, so much is happening in the world at the moment. What support is there, like a top 3 or something that you think, yes, this is where our energy is going?
Yeah, so there's a lot of now women going into a career, which is great because we have more to choose from. And a lot of support they need is the comfort of flexibility. And I think IMI is great at recognizing that. And I'm a very good example. I have a lot of my daughter around. I work at very flexible hours. And this is also to give them example that they could be different patterns of working. And whatever their needs at their time of the life is, could be accommodated to. So another extreme would be people who are alone at home out of COVID. They're obviously getting very sick. So to get them involved in tasks, in a teams where they can interact with group of people. So it's very individual. It's about listening to the team. It's about recognizing what makes the performance drop or what could lift performance. It's really very, very individual. We had recently an internal promotion where the person was very doubtful if she could manage. So the support we could offer was to offer her 4 months we are with you. We do it with you. So there is something to fall back on. It's not all you. And she's doing great. She's developing. We've confirmed her in the role. It's really very individual. It's about listening what that person worries about.
Yes, that self-chatter that often people have in their head of, I can't do this, I've never done this before, have I got what it takes? It can always be there, but to have a leader that's there with you and stepping in there into that fear with you, I can imagine is incredibly valuable. And actually, you're going to get so much more out of that person. And not only that, trust, loyalty, all of those things. Luke, what, in terms of what you've found, in terms of what's important to develop careers, what have you found has been a challenge and what has been really working well?
Maybe I'll start with what's been working well. So I think from my side, I think we sort of worked on a development program at IMI, and a lot of it was revolved around looking at sort of different ways of developing finance talent at lots of different levels of the organization. And one of the areas that we spent a lot of time working on was a sort of mentoring program, which has now been running for about 2 years. I think there were sort of 21 pairings, so sort of 42 people in the mentoring program. And after 2 years, we haven't had any turnover from that group at all, which I think goes a little bit back to what Edyta said about sort of having, you know, people you trust in, people that can support and learn on. I think it's what that's helped to do is give people recognition from the company, like we sort of recognize sort of future talent that we're looking to develop, but it also gives them sort of a wider network within the business. The pairings were intentionally made to sort of give people different perspectives from different areas of the business that are different to what they see day to day, and that then gives them a very different perspective, quite a refreshing feel about their day-to-day job, when they have those conversations. And interestingly, through the course of the last 2 years, a few of those people have actually sort of, as people have got promoted, they're now sort of working with each other and things in different areas of the business, which has been really, really nice to see. It definitely has. Yeah, on the challenging side of things, yeah, I think there's definitely a little bit for maybe younger members of of sort of finance teams, finance organizations, about just sort of educating them about different areas of finance. So we talked a little bit about mine and Edyta's careers being quite different in terms of the approach, but sort of giving people awareness about, the sort of need to sort of get maybe operational experience, commercial experience, maybe some accounting experience. There are other areas like sort of treasury tax and so on that people can get experience on, but just sort of making sure people have the awareness of that from an early stage, and a sort of thinking as well that, if they're willing to overseas experience, to what Edyta said in terms of self-reflections, it's really, really important. So I think, just challenging younger members of teams to sort of learn about that as early as they can in their career, so that they give themselves the best footing going forward is important.
And I love the fact that you've had so much success with mentoring. A lot of companies struggle with that, because it's not as easy as everyone thinks. As a coach, I deal with not telling people what to do and helping them find their own way through it. In fact, literally my guidelines from my professional body are that I cannot lead in any way. Whereas, of course, mentoring is very much the gift of experience and guiding someone. So how have you made that so successful? Or what is it, do you think, that people really miss when they're trying to set up mentoring schemes in their own?
I think that there was quite a lot of time spent around making the pairings. I think the pairings was not so much of an exercise where you just get a list of names and just put some arrows from one to the next. I think it's very carefully thinking, what sort of level are the mentees at, what level mentor would they benefit from, how long have they been in their current role, what's their background been. So therefore, when you're making a mentor partner, you're actually sort of giving someone support. And I think probably, if I think back, there might have been maybe a slightly larger pool of mentors, and because of the pool of mentees we have, maybe some of those mentors didn't get matched, which is not to say there's anything wrong with the mentor, but it's more just a case of, for the cohort, if you like, of mentees we had, that we wanted to make sure that they got the best matches they had. Then the other thing we used is we did actually use a mentoring platform, which gave a little bit of formality and structure around things. And I think that also helped initiate the process. Lots of good sort of user guides, particularly for things like the mentees going into their first mentoring meeting, just to sort of really get the ball rolling, get the ball moving. And maybe the last one for me is what we also did was that for the people in the program, maybe it got them some special access to, say, like a fireside chat with the CFO that we did, so all the mentors and mentees came along and just had a bit of an open discussion, talking about anything and everything with the CFO, which was pretty cool. It's a good session.
You look like you look excited right now, as the way you're describing that. That was pretty cool. Tell me more about that fireside chat.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it was, it was really just a discussion through their career, but I think also some quite open questions. And I also think, just, tackled some big and honest issues about, if you are looking to be a CFO, you will be traveling, you will be on the road. That might then, mean you sort of, so miss a sports day or something like that as a result. But so I think it was just, rather than sort of trying to sort of pretend everything's perfect, it was just very kind of down to earth, but also help them understand that, careers go in lots of different directions. Like our CFO has been a group treasurer, for example, which is, perhaps not the most, normal career direction, but, everyone takes different directions, and there's no perfect route to any one particular role.
You've put it in a way that's so open and refreshingly honest, because there is a give and take when it comes to leadership roles, and there is not a dark side, but just like people, we all have, so we have to look at the whole person, and the whole person will have sports days if that's a part of their life, and will have, some thrive on travel, some thrive on being at home. As Edyta, you were saying, flexibility is important there. What else do you think is really important in career development, and that's open to the floor?
I probably will throw the communication and the dialogue on the different levels. So first is that I already said we need to be very tailored to people, to each other. We are all a talent. We are all having a purpose in the company. And if we are very clear and transparent about it, we can best match the capabilities and the roles and develop. So very clear communication, but not just a formality. And I've seen that IMI is doing it really, really very good in a very open way and targeted to employees, where we have those discussions, where we pick up what are the inspirations, what are the potential careers moves, what are the gaps. We do it in an honest way. We don't use the time to fill the form and to make the HR happy, but we take the time to understand. So this is where the open communication from both, from leader and from the employee, talking about what us, not being ashamed to say, I want to have the sports days. And then we can find out maybe there's a role where he doesn't need to travel, but nevertheless he can develop. So it's a really very good open communication. And we do this communication also on a different level, where we are open communicating also about the business, where we invite people to talk about their ideas. And this is how we identify we have talent. This is where we identify we have people who have potential, because they're invited, they join the conversations. We don't let only the managers talk. And I think IMI to welcome it, to inspire it, and this helps us to have this broader conversations and broader review of what we could be doing ourselves. We do a lot of internal promotions. I think compared to my previous experience, IMI is quite encouraging that. And it has a lot of benefits for the company too. I spend a lot of time trying to hire externally, while internally, you know what you're getting. You know the attitude, you know the potential. It's easier to assess, so you don't get the recruitment wrong, and it's much quicker to get that person ramped up. So the communication aspect, where we try to put all the facts and try to have all the information from the people development perspective, not ignoring it. It's a very, very important aspect, because when we have not the right talent, then we cannot achieve our goals. I've seen a lot of business plans beautiful on the paper, not flying because we didn't have the right people at the right time.
Yeah, people development. Well, I mean, I'm going to be an advocate of that. and I'm slightly biased. What was interesting, though, you said about communicating with different styles. And of course, you've got a platform where you're inviting people to step up and have that platform to speak. Is there anything that you're doing within to encourage different personality styles, or do you focus on a few like different strengths? How does that work, and what do you look at?
So from my perspective, we try to be mindful of the cultural differences, but we try to give the examples of also what is the tone that we want to run the business, and to have the organization in, and people then can easily adapt. So I had very recently had American side added to my responsibility. Previously, I was responsible for EMEA side only, and there's obviously a very different culture. And it was difficult for them to be very open, very transparent, and to be talking about their issues in front of all of us as a team, global team. They would rather prefer to get their target and just go for it and get the reward of achieving it. But by transforming it and being open about how do we want to behave and what we want this to look like, we gave them the chance to adapt. And then we had one common way of doing, one common way of talking. So, for example, we installed workshops and calls on the global level where we all share in front of each other what are our problems, and then we find solutions together. Or I tell them what makes my life very difficult and what makes me not sleep. And then they come forward and they say, well, we have some ideas how we can together solve it. So it's the communication style of openness, but also giving the expectation clear for all of us to adapt and to find the one way of talking together. I think that works very good on a global level, where we have teams with different cultures, different experiences. They need to get clarification what it is how they should behave best, so we all understand each other and we can achieve the best result.
It sounds like that's almost like a global language specifically for your team, so you come in together, and most people talk about values, of course, which are important things, but you're talking about having that behavioral and understanding and that language so that you can all connect, or as you say, that you can say, what this is not, I'm not sleeping at night because of this issue. And that means, correct me if I'm wrong, they're going, okay, we need to do something about this then, and this is what we're going to do, and that's going to be my behavior about that. So if you're setting that up, you're saying about looking at behavior and how we're going to make this work. But if we're going to say, okay, this language you've created, is there a process to that when you're building that, or key questions that you think about when you're building that language?
I try to make sure that we are clear what we are saying, or what does it mean to this person, and does it not punish, and does it, because a lot of times by choosing to communicate down, we demotivate and we punish even though we don't know about it. So I'm trying to be very mindful about using the most effective way of having the people understand what the problem is and wanting to help us solve it. And I've seen this not just within my teams, but we also created similar culture on the divisions of FTs, where we are openly sharing and openly inviting each other, and open for criticism as well. So we can point out to each other what we could do better, but we just choose the language in a soft way, not to show that, I'm doing it better, but to show, what did you think about that? Would you like me to show you how I do it? Maybe that inspires you. So really very open to get the people to realize, I want that. I will grab that ball, not to throw it on them and make them be punched.
It's a very concise way of looking at it, and almost creating a really complex situation and making it really simple and easy. That sounds like, though, you've got a set of rules that are governed by a culture that allows it, and the culture that has that safety and that sense, that, as I think you guys said it before, that awareness of, well, I'm going to say this in a way that is actually helpful and is clear to the other person that my intention is to help and not to rub them up the wrong way, or not to say things in a way that might feel negative or a criticism or excluding in any way. So I love that. Luke, in terms of that, going back, so I was saying about that career development thing. So we've got language, we've got communication skills and mentoring. Is there anything else you think that is imperative for developing careers?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I was just enjoying the last conversation really quite.
Well, do you want to add to that? I mean, is there anything to add in that?
No, because I really resonate a lot with what Edyta said. I certainly the bit that you mentioned, Alexandra, about the fact that I think values are sort of like an underpin. So for us, like integrity is one of the values. I think that sort of just courses through the culture of the organization. It then makes these sort of more difficult conversations really easy, and it's all about doing them with transparency. I think one thing I would say about developing careers, I think if I look around my career, in fact, I've sort of, a lot of the roles I've done them for like roughly about two years. So sort of moved with relative frequency, and each time sort of tried to do something a bit different. Sometimes there's some sideways moves in there. That's okay. But one thing I would say is actually one of the roles I did for sort of kind of over 3 years, not too senior level, and actually, I think in amongst a lot of people around me sort of moving and getting promoted and so on and so forth, I actually think in some respects, having a little bit of an extended time in a role developed me even more. And part of that, even if it wasn't necessarily as stretching towards the end of it, I think I was finding that I was responsible for decisions I'd made maybe 3 years ago, if you like, and actually having to live with that sort of, well, I made this decision then, and because I said this, we're now, at the time, maybe, whatever it was, 2017 was years away, and I thought nothing of it in 2014, let's say. But obviously you then become, sort of culpable for the long-term performance of the team, not just the sort of, I think it's very easy to come in and sort of make an improvement over a short period and give everyone a sort of buzz of energy. I think maintaining the development of your team over a longer period, I think was an interesting reflection. And it's certainly, I think it made me a lot more patient in my career as well, and just realized that, you don't just need to keep jumping from one role to the next. I think sometimes having an extended period in a role where you really see some long-term development is quite important.
And when you were saying that in terms of decisions made in like 2017 and how, and how that works, it makes me wonder about how culpable you are to your future self as a leader. So how you can think about the decision you make today, which of course could be completely terrifying if we're thinking about the weight of that decision, even more so. But do you think there's an element where, you sounded quite relaxed. You went, well, that was a decision I made then, and I made it to the best of my ability then. We have to have a relationship with the leader we were in the past. Does this make sense? Am I right?
Yeah, no, it does. And I think part of the reason I was smiling as well, because I've actually, the role I was describing was in the team that I'm currently managing. So I sort of went out the journey and came back. So I'm also sort of living with the after effects of the roles that I did, several years down the line, even still. So, it definitely makes you think for the long term when you're doing things.
Well, that's always a good thing, isn't it? To really think about, okay, if I'm the leader, I don't know, it could be either looking to the future and thinking where I'm going to be in 3 years' time, in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, what will I be thinking about this decision now? But then when making decisions, I think when we're forecasting decisions at the moment, it's somewhat our scope of time has changed in terms of what we can think is a reliable assumption. And versus say 3 months or 12 months, that's probably a whole other show about long-term thinking and short-term thinking. But if we look back to who we were, does it make you think about how far you've come when you look back?
Yeah, I would definitely say, I'm quite reflective. So I think about those things a lot. And even I recently looked back on things like Myers-Briggs personality profiles, and actually mine's slightly moved over the last 5 years, and those things don't usually move very much. And it definitely does, along with everything that's happened in the sort of world over the last few years, that we are, sort of always evolving as people. And that will also then change your leadership style at work. And, you need to recognize if you've changed slightly, that you need to kind of adapt the way you're working on a day-to-day basis. Maybe as I've sort of taken on more responsibility, I'm less into the details perhaps once was, but then I love getting into the details. It's just my natural style. But it's then how do I kind of manage that with what I've got on, and kind of pick the right battles.
What kind of battles do you find you have to pick?
Yeah, it would be things like the sort of level of detail of review that you get into something, do you, and sort of how much time do you spend on it, and then you're sort of thinking, okay, well, what are the ramifications if I spend less time? What exposure will this piece of work have? And just, it all then becomes a very clever time management exercise as well. So time being the key limiter here.
It sounds like very, very insightful in terms of managing yourself and managing, and know it as you said the whole way through, knowing yourself that bit better and understanding where you get drawn into, because Edyta, as you were saying, we get motivated, like Atomic Habits, we get motivated by those things. So having that attention to detail is great, to a point, because of course it's the time versus detail part. So here's the question for leaders who are out there and thinking of their career development. What pieces of advice would you summarize up from your own experiences as well, in terms of what is to develop their career? What do you feel has been a standout lesson for you?
People management. I think this is what Uluk also mentioned, where do I stop doing and let people do? And this is where I think we need to test early if we want it. If we are management potential, we will find joy in that. We should expose ourselves early to test it if we want that, or whether we should stay in the very specialist side of things. But if we want that, then we need to continuously be mindful and learn and improve and try. I've had loads of tests and methods. I had some coaching, how to get output, how to get the team to work, how to get the results of other people. Because we've proven to ourselves that probably we are good at our jobs, but if you want to be a leader, we need to get the other people to find them, to motivate them, but also make them do this for us in a manner we would be happy with, we would be confident with, without us needing to do this. And so for me, this is the most important, how to manage people developing themselves, growing into the roles.
Really from the ground up. That's a beautiful piece. Luke, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I would actually agree with Edyta as that was my number one. So I'll go with my number two, which is I think developing yourself as a leader. I think it's good to at some point during your career really throw yourself into the deep end with something completely different. Edyta mentioned about time in Asia Pacific. I think for myself it was sort of doing a German speaking role as a non-German speaker. There'll be lots of people that don't have the opportunity to work overseas. So whether or not it's going into the sales function, into the operations function, something completely out of finance with a view to maybe bouncing back in time to come, so you get a completely different perspective at some point in your career that would really accelerate your growth.
So what we're doing is compiling this huge, a combination of stretch projects, but also really being open-minded about what it means to have a career in finance and what it means to be, not, as you said earlier, you're not always going to get that upward trajectory to a CFO. It could take you anywhere. And from what you've said, I'd summarize it as really listening to your leaders, really understanding yourself and your strengths, and looking at those different styles as a team and how and what place you have in that as well. And then it sounds like your career will develop in the right way if you focus on those things. Is that right?
Yep.
Amazing.
To the beginning about the book, Atomic Habits, it's all about being authentic. Yeah, it's all about understanding what is you and what are your values. And the rest will be no effort.
I think that's a perfect place to finish there. That's a wonderful quote to finish on. Thank you so much for your time today. And I've really enjoyed this talk. I hope you have too. And where can we get hold of you if we want to connect, if someone wants to connect or get in touch?
Share LinkedIn profile?
LinkedIn profile would be the easiest way.
Perfect. LinkedIn profiles are going to be in the show notes. So if you want to get in touch, then do, or go through me, and you can ask any questions through me as well, and I can always pass them on. And if you want any further details about the Leaders Library and read up about the books and the key lessons, then do join the Leaders Library as well. But otherwise, to my guests, thank you so much for joining us today on this really great, and it's my first one with two guests as well. So thank you. That was a really joyful one. And on that note, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you.